What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Perpetually Correct live edition this evening. I am your host, J Mac. I am joined by the famous Kyle Beats and JB. What's going on, fellas?
J-Mac, we're back in the studio for another week, a little bit more somber than last week's performance on the books. But hey, we do it every week, rise and shine. We take the licks. We're here for the listeners. We know it's never going to go 1,000%, but when you're that wrong on a team like I personally was on Michigan, you certainly have to own up to it.
You and me both, buddy. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I had to go back and listen to see what that predicted score was, and that was a 37-10, so we were just a hair off, but you know, these things happen.
It was just the wrong way.
Right, but we are seeing, I think we're seeing NFL clear as day, man. 3-0 when we include J-Mac's pick in there for San Fran, and really happy about how that's going. It just comes down to how hard college is to predict, man. I mean, you're betting on 19 and 20-year-old kids.
Exactly.
Look, you're also looking at a much bigger slate too, which
Sure.
NFL, we got bye weeks now rolling in. I mean, it's pretty easy when you can keen in on 13 games then there's one on Thursday. You got maybe 10-11 on Sunday, then Monday night, even end of the year, you got Saturday games. College football, I mean, it seems like it's almost every week once we hit to conference action with MAC going on. So college football is a grind in its own right. And certainly, to your point, Kyle, trying to understand where 19 and 20-year-olds' heads are at. And guess what? I don't have their test schedules. Every time,
Right.
every time you feel like you got a good read on a team, you're watching it. And then in the fourth quarter, Kirk Herbstreit tells me that the starting quarterback had 3 biochem tests that week.
That is a good point.
Kirk?
Yeah, bring it up on game day, homie. Don't tell me at 9 p.m. when I've already locked in 7 things, 8 years in.
Exactly. Like, I need to know that Ian Book had 4, mid-quarter tests that day or that week,
Or
rather than
due. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
And that's at Notre Dame.
But yes, exactly.
I'm not worried about SEC schools. Those kids don't go to school. But
Nah.
I feel really good that I picked Wisconsin. I'm going to be just transparent with our listeners as always. As soon as we got off the air, these two guys can testify that I was skeptical on that pick and started doubting myself. But nevertheless, I did choose Wisconsin. And, that game comes down to a couple of things. But do you guys look at it more of Wisconsin as the more talented team and outplayed them because they're better in the trenches? Or was this Harbaugh kind of showing his true colors as he's maybe not the coach we thought he was?
Harbaugh sucks. That game plan sucked. I said Michigan would win this game as long as they didn't do everything I said they wouldn't do, which was line up in the I formation and try to run it down their throat. They didn't key in on the run. You faced all run teams leading up to that game. Were you shocked that Jonathan Taylor was getting a ball every play? I couldn't understand it. They didn't start to air the ball out till the second half. And then what happened? Underthrown balls, they were winning. They were getting pass interference. I mean, it was not rocket science. If you did some reading, though, after the game, it seems like there's been issues with Shea Patterson in that locker room.
Yep.
And it's kind of tough because, to your point, you never hear about this stuff till after the fact. And it's part of the trouble with handicapping these games is you just don't know it. So it sounds like there was a reason he wasn't voted a team captain as a fifth-year senior.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
He's a Harbaugh guy, but I don't think the locker room likes Shea or Harbaugh. So we're in an interesting spot with Michigan. I just don't even think they're going to sniff the top 25 by the end of the year. And honestly, they should just be lucky to get into a bowl game at this point.
But I mean, do you guys really? All that being said, is Harbaugh your guy going forward? Where are we at with that? I mean, I know what you feel like, but do you think Michigan loses faith? I think we've always looked at this as he has the job there as long as he wants it. I don't know about that now.
Well, I think you're looking at Matt Campbell from Iowa State coming in there, if not this year, the next year. Guy who knows the area, how to recruit.
Right.
Certainly would fit in well with the Michigan Boosters. Very well respected amongst college football. So that's the name I'd watch. I'm not a Harbaugh guy. I don't know how his career has followed Colin Kaepernick. You go from Super Bowl to not in the NFL to you're just trying to scrape out of the college. I mean, he's kind of having a weird trajectory on where his career. I don't know where he goes next. Would anyone give him a Power 5 school at this point?
Probably not. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Power 5 school, probably not, unless you're talking about like a Les Miles to Kansas type of situation.
Right. And the thing is, too, you've got to think that, I mean, there were just so many times where he just wasn't really, it didn't feel like he was aware of what was going on. But I guess the other part of this, though, is that, like, if you really think about the coaches he had before, you had Rich Rod, you had Brady Hoke, like, those guys were way worse than he's been. And he's got a way better record so far than they had. So, I mean, like,
true.
That, and the other part of that, too, is, like, he's your guy. He's the Michigan guy. Like, that was, like, I don't know. I feel like his leash is probably longer than we feel like. I don't think they're going to rush to make a change. I really don't.
His leash is very long, but it can only go so far.
Sure,
what happens against Ohio State at the end of the year, whether they're 7-5, 9-3, whatever it is, that's going to be a big deal. I don't think they're going to struggle for a bowl game as Jason does. Obviously, they're, I guess, not technically eliminated from the playoffs, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, based on these performances, they are. So, that shows that was a terrible pick by J-Mac and myself.
Yeah, I'll own it.
I mean, they'd have to run the table pretty darn convincingly.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole because it's not going to happen. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, sure, I guess they're not technically eliminated, but I mean that. So, the interesting contract details, on Harbaugh, $7.5 million buyout after the year 2020. That moves to $10 million.
So if you're going to buy him out, you do it this year, basically.
Correct. That's kind of the way I'm reading that. So I would say, to your guys' point, I think there's going to be probably a pretty deep look into where they want to go. But it's all relative to the market, too. If there's not someone out there that you feel's better, and not going to – I mean, you look at when Georgia Tech, I mean, someone had to take over that program with all whatever offense you want to call that in today's college football landscape. I mean, that is such a rebuilding process. You got to give that guy almost 4 years. Here's 4 full recruiting classes before we're going to start to judge you, because they're going complete spread offense.
Yeah, you got triple option recruits out there playing spread. And I mean, you're talking about arguably the worst Power 5 team.
Yeah,
probably.
They're pretty bad.
So this is Harbaugh's third year, right? Or fourth?
I think it's fourth or fifth.
Wow, that's crazy.
We'll have to look that up. But I do like your call, Jason. Is it Matt Campbell? Is that the Iowa State coach's name? I like that because there is something to, as you said, knowing how to recruit a region of the country and knowing how to build a team for a specific conference. Yeah. Like when you build a team for the Big Ten, it starts in the offensive and defensive line, because you don't really have the perimeter player access that you do in California or in the Deep South. But I do like that call, and that would obviously be a big step up. I mean, that guy might love Iowa State, but you're leaving Iowa State for Michigan 10 times out of 10. But we've seen that program. We talked about it last week, really on the come up, and it's been pretty consistent these last few years. So I think it's possible. But to J-Mac's point, even when we think Harbaugh should be out, I don't know if Michigan's going to let him out, or release him. I do think he's starting to lose the locker room, and
he's known for
fan
that.
base is definitely split, and you could feel that pressure and tension building. And he looks lost on the sideline, like he constantly is just like looking around, like mouth breathing, like
kind of confused. Yeah,
like he doesn't know what's going on. It's like this guy's just being out coached left and right in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
can we get a job description on the guy who's always carrying around that cord for him?
Dude, yeah, I want to know more about that. As soon as I saw that happening consistently, that's actually, Kyle, I don't know if you saw this, but I tweeted out a video. It was by halftime offering JB and I services to be head coach / offensive coordinator. I don't even care, like, which one. You can be the head coach. I don't care. I just want us in there to fix it, because he didn't know what the hell was happening. And that guy with the cord was not helping.
Jump balls to your two NFL wide receivers that have about 6 inches on both their corners, and just see what happens.
Just
because you running it into a brick wall every play was not working. Just
lob it up to an NFL player that's being guarded by a non-NFL player instead of running into the teeth of 300-pound guys.
Weird how your best players make plays. Weird.
And I will give credit. Is it Jonathan Taylor, the running back, that was just running downhill?
Yeah, he's going to be in the Heisman mix, man.
Yeah, I don't.
I like him. I like Chuba from OK State. I think he could maybe get himself in the mix if he puts up some, Big 12 type of stats. But, transitioning to the Georgia Notre Dame game, my guy Swift, not quite the numbers I was expecting him to put up, but still really solid game. Had some great runs, and I have to come on here and apologize to Notre Dame. I mean, they showed out. They looked good. They weren't overmatched. I do think there was a little bit of Georgia not taking them seriously, the same way my TCU pick, which blew up in my face. I don't think they took SMU seriously. And Jason, I don't want to hear the word Shane Buechele come out of your mouth because that guy just tore them apart. But they are a better team, and they win that game 9 times out of 10. They just didn't play well, and that's the first time I've seen Gary Patterson get out coached, and it was terrible. But back to the Notre Dame game, I was really impressed by what I saw by them. I think they'll handle Virginia pretty handily this week, and they have a good chance to win 10 or 11 games this year.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a nice segue into our first college football preview. We do have the Virginia Cavaliers heading on the highway to Notre Dame, 2:30 kick. Virginia last week had 28-point favorites, went into halftime down 17-0 to Old Dominion, which is probably a team that you scheduled in your non-conference to beat up on if you play the NCAA football game back in the day. This is an interesting matchup. First of all, it looks like there could be some weather this weekend kind of across the United States, which I think is always something to factor in college football. But to your point, Notre Dame's defense looked much improved. We kind of talked about Louisville and how they exploited them in the run game. And after watching last week how they were able to control Swift to a degree, my concern now is Notre Dame's defense. Have they figured it out how to stop the run? Or is it running quarterbacks that give them an issue? Because Bryce Perkins for Virginia, I mean, he's really a one-man wrecking crew for what Virginia is looking to do. They haven't really played anyone, I guess, to this point. I was taking a look. I mean, they haven't faced too many defenses that would necessarily scare you. So, Kyle, do you think that Notre Dame's figured out their run defense issues, or will Bryce Perkins find some success on the highway?
So I think they figured it out to a degree. I mean, those guys are going to put it on tape and certainly make improvements, but that doesn't change the talent level. I still think that could be an issue, and I think they're going to have trouble containing the QB. That being said, the point you made last week, which I wasn't as aware of until I really watched that Georgia game, is Notre Dame's got a hell of a secondary. So I think what you can do against Virginia, not having the greatest athletes on the outside, probably some 3-star guys instead of 4 or 5, is you can pretty much go one-on-one and trust your athletes out there and load a little bit more in the box, or have those safeties maybe 10, 12 yards off line of scrimmage instead of 15, 20. So I think that's going to be a big deal, as these outside linebackers and these safeties playing containment. I think he'll break a few big runs, but overall, I think Virginia is going to be outclassed in this game. I'm seeing the line somewhere in the neighborhood of 12.5. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, so for the line-wise, you're kind of spot on. We got the 12.5 range. What's been kind of beat down is the over-under to what I mentioned with the rain. In the forecast, been pushed down from 52 to 48.5.
Wow,
that's a big move.
That's a big move.
Yeah, it is a big move, but the weather in college definitely has to be a factor. And one interesting point I watched that Virginia game last week, is it was weirdly nationally televised, and I'm just psychotic in that way. Their starting center had a hand issue, which much of why they struggled in the first half. He couldn't really snap it. If you want, there's awkward exchanges. If you played center, that's a big deal if your snapping hand's injured. So they moved him to guard. That kind of fixed everything. They put in the backup center. That helped. But the backup center left late last week as well. So something to monitor, because if they're going with a true freshman at center and a banged up starting center at guard, I think Notre Dame can kind of feast there. Interesting kind of point to watch. Brian Kelly loves to get Ian Book into space and on the run.
Yes.
Georgia shut that down, obviously with athletes, but mainly because they run a 3-4 defense, which if you've ever tried to run the option read versus a 3-4 defense, makes it a little bit harder on the quarterback, just with the spacing and speed. So Virginia also runs that. So to your point, Kyle, I think the best way for Notre Dame to attack the Cavaliers D, it's going to be downfield. Ian Book's going to have a big day throwing it, but there is rain and wind that can really deplete it. So something to track if you guys are looking to lay anything on this game. I think Notre Dame 12.5, good number. They should probably win this by 2 touchdowns or more. Yeah. But if there is weather, if Ian's not able to get it downfield, if you've ever watched a game live in Notre Dame or on TV in that weather, J-Mac, I'm sure you can attest to this, it can get pretty muddy and sloppy down there quickly. So if that happens, I'm very interested in the under.
Right, the under, and I think even the spread is a little bit high there in that case, because I mean, you're going to have a lot more running. Like, it's just going to be trying to grind the clock in that situation. It just changes the elements a lot. And I think That could even be an underdog type of spot, but I would still stay away from that. Go the under if it was, if the weather shakes out like we think there.
I like the under. I think weather plays a part, maybe not as much as you guys are putting emphasis on it.
I do not understand.
In the college, yeah, right.
I do not understand your takes with weather,
this is the
dude. I just
weirdest
don't
take.
understand them.
I think it matters more in college than pro, though, for sure. And I mean,
well, yeah, you don't have the option of having an indoor stadium either.
Well, when you're throwing the ball about 10 to 15 miles per hour slower than an NFL quarterback,
yeah, it's going to do a little
wind
more.
comes into a factor. Go outside and throw a football, lob one in the severe wind, and then throw a dart. It's different. I promise.
I'm convinced I got a stronger arm than Ian Book, but I digress. If anything here, I like the under. Kinda, I would definitely favor Notre Dame 12.5. The 12.5 versus a 13 or a 14 is a big deal. That's kind of a good number to lock in at 12.5. I definitely like a tease potential here of just 6 points. Get a minus 120 on a tease to get Notre Dame down to 6.5. So all I got to do is win by a touchdown. Maybe get that under up to 54.5, 55. That I would be feeling pretty confident about that. I do think Virginia is a much improved program. So kudos to my man. What's his name? I love God. He's got such a good name, the Virginia coach.
It's not Tony Bennett. He does basketball.
I know. God dang it. I can't think of his name right now. But kudos to Virginia. I mean, they've turned that program around, much like we talked about, like Iowa State doing. But this is a game where they're going to be outclassed.
You're talking about Bronco Mendenhall, by the way.
Bronco. Yeah, there we go. I
Former
love that
BYU
name.
great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
One thing to track on this, because we have seen this with Notre Dame and Brian Kelly. He does understand, based on their schedule, he does kind of have to blow out teams to make it to the college football playoffs.
Yes.
So he's had no issue in the past with keeping his foot on the pedal.
Running it up.
Right. And if you look at the schedule, they have Bowling Green next week, but then their only two challenges after that are going to be USC, which I don't consider a challenge considering they're looking at their fifth string quarterback at this rate. And then Michigan, who that's going to be the biggest cakewalk of the year. So at this point, when you're breaking down the schedule, I'm just from their thought, hey, we have a one possession loss versus probably a team that's going to be in the college football playoff discussion. If we go out and blow out everyone else from here, they're going to be in a really good position. So this is one of their possible last games versus a ranked team, because I don't know in 3 to 4 weeks if Michigan's ranked or if USC's ranked with another loss. So I think you're going to see that urgency from Brian Kelly and his coaching staff going, hey, we had a tough game last week. So did Virginia. Hey, guys, this might be our last ranked opponent. We got to put on a shelling. So I have no problem laying the 12.5 here, trusting Brian Kelly and this team to get it done.
Trust and Brian Kelly are just not two words that typically go together. But I think I'm with you here.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. What team is better right now, USC or Michigan?
Michigan.
Michigan for sure.
Much aligned Clay.
Yeah. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about USC whenever they hire Urban Meyer, which should be any day now.
Yeah, that's pretty odds-on favorite. I mean, it's pretty hefty favorite out in the desert.
Yep.
Well, from two ranked teams to another team on a national title hunt, Ohio State heads on the highway to Nebraska, the Cornhuskers. Ohio State's a 17-point favorite, you guys. This number in the offseason was only 7. So we've seen dramatic movement and an over-under of 66, 67 that's kind of moving down with, as I mentioned, some more weather in the forecast for this Saturday. So again, guys, if you're looking to lock in over-unders, something seems too good to be true, take 10 seconds, Google, Athens, Georgia weather or whatever game, Nebraska Cornhuskers weather, because you don't want to be caught in that. Two teams here, Nebraska coming in with a lot of hype. I know, J-Mac, you're very familiar with quarterback for Ohio State, Justin Fields, and following his career and trajectory. Where do you see this game? What's your thoughts?
Dude, so I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that we definitely underestimated Ryan Lay as the coach at Ohio State. He is killing it. He has missed no beat whatsoever when it comes to replacing Urban Meyer. I like Justin Fields in this game. I think they're going to cover that easily, honestly. I think, I don't know, whenever we look at Nebraska, I'm not really sure that they're the real deal. I need to see more on that before I really am sold on that. And still a 17-point line against them is really heavy.
So, I mean, that 17 is a lot, on the road. And Nebraska was a ranked team coming into the year. That's why that line started off at 7. But given what we've seen these first few weeks, Ohio State has looked absolutely fantastic. As you said, Justin, I think you and I both slept on them a little bit. I'm not going to, lose my mind because you beat Miami by 70 points or whatever, but
Miami of Ohio, chill out. Miami of Ohio.
I understand it's Miami of Ohio. It's the University of Miami. I understand it's not the U, but I'm just saying I don't put too much stock in that. But Nebraska's been unimpressive. I mean, that game against Colorado is just like, okay, this team's clearly overrated again. The NCAA wants Nebraska to be good so bad because they're a very profitable school. They're stuck in the 80s and 90s, though. Like, Big Red and that brand is just not what it once was, and it's not even close. And Scott Frost is in over his head a little bit, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's got to get some of his guys in there and turn it around and get that recruiting class to where he wants it to be. Because when he took over UCF, I'm not breaking news here, but they were like 0-12 the year before, and then we saw where he took them to. Like, if you can do that at UCF, you can do that at Nebraska. It's just going to take time.
Definitely.
But I think he's in over his head a little bit right now, and I think they're going to lose this game big. I would lay the 17. I would almost look at like an alternate line at like 19 or 20 and try to get some plus money.
Yeah.
So I'll continue with your negative Nebraska narrative. So that's the way you guys want to go here. Nebraska's had awful turnover issues. I think they're like -8 so far year to date.
Mm-hmm.
O-line's let up 10 sacks, 31 runs for losses. Ohio State's number 2 in the nation, and minus plays on rushes, which Nebraska loves to do. But I'm going to flip the switch here. I absolutely love what we're seeing out of Nebraska in this situation. I'm sorry, I'm getting 10 points here. The teams haven't changed. Adrian Martinez, one of the most explosive players in college football. And Ohio State's always been susceptible to the explosive play because one of their ego. They have no problem doing press man coverage and letting you go over the top.
Happened against Purdue last year.
Yep.
And Nebraska is a huge home field advantage. This is a fan base, one of the more prouder fan bases, a fan base that fired Bo Patino because he was going 10-2 every year, and they thought they should be 12-0.
Right.
So
unbelievable.
This is a dedicated fan base that has gone through a little bit of hardships. Scott Frost is not over his head in any stretch. It's probably one of the, I'd say, top 5 coaches in college football. I don't even think it's close.
Maybe he's a top 5 coach, but that roster is not going to get it done
he's had one
year.
Full recruiting class. That's
right.
his. He has taken advantage of the junior college program the same way SMU has done with their transfers in, such as Shane Buechele. And what we're going to see,
what a burn!
What we're going to see on Saturday night is an electric atmosphere. And when you're telling me that they have to beat them by 3 or more scores to cover, I'm taking Nebraska all day long in this line.
Wow.
I certainly think Ohio State pulls it out, but Ohio State is fine letting off the gas in those situations, especially with 15 to 20 mile an hour winds, rain in the forecast. I'm going to trust the team that has a dedicated run game. In turnovers, those always seem to regress to the mean. They've had terrible luck. I say this pretty much every week. You have a team that they keep losing games or having close games due to that turnover rate. And what happens if they don't blow the lead in Colorado? I mean, they were up like 20 points to Colorado 2 weeks ago, ended up losing in overtime. If they don't blow that game, there's no way this thing's in double-digit land. So,
I mean, that's fair, but I can see this game being 21-31 or 24-31 with like 7 or 8 minutes left, and Ohio State still winning by 3 touchdowns. Like, I just think I'm going to take the team that has 25 NFL players versus the team that has 5.
Yeah, and that's fair, but it's college football. This is Justin Fields. This is I still need to see Justin Fields. They haven't played anyone, and Ryan Day reopened up the quarterback competition the week of the first week of the season because he was so fed up with Justin Fields. So that dude is incredible. He could have started as a true freshman and been just as well. So
agreed.
I'm interested with him heading on the road. First true real test for him. True. And Ryan Day, a first-year head coach. I just think there's another aspect here. So, I mean, to your point, should Ohio State cover? Probably, but maybe the first half's a way to look as well.
Yeah.
Just with that rocking atmosphere, grab 10, 10.5. I don't want to get into that situation. Yeah,
I like that.
Turnover bug bites them. So,
yeah,
I think it's going to be a great game, one to tune in, and I think it's a good measuring stick for both teams. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a game we walk away knowing a lot more about both.
Agreed.
Specifically.
Same with Notre Dame, Virginia.
Yes. I think that's. I mean, you don't have a lot of big games this week like that, but you have some very telling games that are going to help set the landscape really well.
I'd agree. Well, as we started last week, talking about college teams to barely a team that's elevated over college, the Miami Dolphins once again headed on the highway, and they did not cover again to our disagreement. So I know Kyle's favorite segment, Would You Lay It? The Miami Dolphins, 16.5-point dogs. Are you trusting Phillip Rivers to I'm going to put the words back in Kyle Beats' mouth. They're traveling across time zones. They're going from West Coast to East Coast.
Yeah,
There's an early kick for these
wind
guys.
at 12 miles per hour.
There's humidity. There's a Hard Rock Cafe. There's these nightclubs in Miami, and 17 points. Oh my! So, Kyle, tell us where your head's at with this cross-country travel that Phillip Rivers and his family of 15 are doing.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, his family pictures are terrifying. They're all dressed in white. I mean, they all look identical. It's truly horrifying.
They all get into
is this a 12 o'clock kickoff? 12 o'clock Central?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God, I'm taking the points. I'm taking the points. I'm taking the points. Big deal, man.
Yep.
I'm going to take the points this week.
I think I will too. I think that they're due to cover a little bit.
16, right?
16.5. Yeah.
I'll take it.
I'm taking that.
I'm going to take it too. I mean, the Chargers, this is a team that felt like dismantled by the Lions at home. They had Texans on the ropes, couldn't finish them off last week and lost. I mean, again, I said every week, I love the Chargers roster. Hate Anthony Lynn. I think he's just an awful coach in the NFL. So I don't trust that Anthony Lynn's going to be able to put a game plan together well enough to be able to cover this line. They'll just sit there and be like, we're up 6-5 in the fourth. Just run it. We're good.
Anthony Lynn is creeping into the Matt Patricia Bill O'Brien territory very quickly.
Yeah. I don't hate Patricia. He's creeping into the Mike McCarthy territory.
That's where
wow.
Yeah. I think though that there's this I don't know. I just think that there's this thing about the Chargers. Like they have like Keenan Allen, for God's sakes, one of the best receivers in the game, and they're just not.
He's had a heck of a year, though.
He has.
Had a heck of a year.
He looks great, but he's about the only person on that team that can do anything productive, and that comes down to game planning.
Well, I think Melvin Gordon's supposed to report tomorrow, right?
I saw that. Yeah,
like that's what we're seeing. So if they make the mistake of trying to feed Melvin Gordon too much, I don't care how good a shape you're in. Everyone says it. All the talking heads. NFL game shape versus being in elite shape, the two different things, man. Like
Correct.
He needs to get paced in at 10 to 15 carries. If they try to give him a workload, I think that's going to backfire on them. And just watching that Houston game, man, if you can get a pass rush on Phil Rivers, man, his decision making is it's always been a little erratic, but it's just terrible. And he's always had that little kind of sidearm floater, but as he ages, it's just the velocity on it is down, and he makes throws. And I'm just like, good Lord, I can't believe this guy was an all-pro at one point.
Not a better way to get eased into a game plan than going down to South Beach and facing a Miami Dolphin team. So
9 o'clock West Coast time, man.
9 o'clock. Oh my gosh, you just can't even fathom how they could wake up out of bed and play. I mean, oh my, there's not coffee or anything in South Beach to wake these guys up. Kyle.
Sounds bad.
Who knows what kind of pagan rituals Phillip Rivers and his family have to do pregame?
I don't know. Well, from one NFL team that won't be in the playoffs to two teams that we kind of predicted would at the start of the year, the 1-2 Eagles head to Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra that's not frozen yet for Thursday night football. Packers ticked up and down around a 4-point favorite, 46 over under. Alshon Jeffrey's supposed to be back. Deshaun Jackson still ruled out for this game. Packers seem fairly healthy, relatively speaking, of course. Kyle, I'll let you get into this game first. I do want to know your thoughts because we know J-Max on Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, but I got to say my tune's changed on Matt LaFleur. I like what he's been doing. Press conferences, he's taking all the blame. He's not a guy that's pointing the finger. He's certainly willing to own up to it. He seems to be a really good players coach, and the players outside of Rodgers have had great things to say. And I really do respect an NFL head coach that even when winning isn't taking that glory. So where's your head at? They're 3-0, but you could probably argue one of the more fraudulent 3-0 teams to this point with how games have played out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they've had a lot of situations, and this has been, brought up on several shows this week, is they've started off hot and they've just taken their foot off the gas. And I don't know if that's whether they're trying to come into their own with the offense, if they're trying to figure out, hey, do we want to give Aaron Jones the ball? Do we want to give Jamal Williams? Rodgers doesn't have, a lot of options outside Devontae Adams. Your boy Valdez Scantling had a big game last week. I still don't really trust him or Geronimo Allison. I think this is a team that's going to have to really rely on the defense a lot, like the year they won the Super Bowl. Difference is Aaron Rodgers is not 27 or 28 like he was that year.
Mm-hmm.
He's 35, 36. And I think they're a fraudulent 3-0, quite frankly. A lot of people are kind of pinning them as like a top 3 NFC team, which I don't see it that way, quite frankly. And then on the flip side, I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the Eagles whatsoever. I know they're 1-2. They've done a lot.
Dude. They're so injured.
They're so injured. I mean, and not having Deshaun for this game is going to be a big deal. I mean, you get Alshon back, but you really want to have all those weapons for Carson Wentz. I actually think Carson Wentz has played decent and taken a lot of flack, which I don't agree with. The running situation has not been good. And is Doug Peterson, is he pulling the trigger and calling the plays for Philly?
Oh yeah. Dougie,
So
ever since he lost the two guys after the Super Bowl,
right.
Coordinator went to the Vikings now, and John DeFilippo, and
Yep.
I forget the other young man's name, but yeah, he's been taking that over. Yeah.
I don't necessarily hate their offense or the plays that they're calling. I hate that the plays that they're calling in the situations that they call them.
Right.
There's been a lot of times where I've seen them like throw on first down, throw on second down, and then you get like into a 3rd and 7 and they do a draw or a sweep. And it's like they're trying to be too cute. And it's like, run the ball on first down. Let Carson Wentz try to make a throw on second. I think he's making it a little harder than it needs to be. And the Phillies secondary, quite frankly, is awful in my opinion. And I think this will be the game where, because Rodgers' stats haven't been good. Like if you watch it, I mean, he's right around 200 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns each game. I think this is going to be his kind of 300-yard, 3-touchdown breakout game because of that Eagles secondary.
See, my take actually in this game is take the Packers, lay the point. It's an easy thing here.
I would lay the points here for sure.
Simply because, and JB brought this to my attention earlier in the week after they lost to the Lions last week. I mean, the health is just such a big deal here. And I just don't, it doesn't, to your point, Kyle, I don't feel like Carson Wentz is playing with all the tools. And I don't think that that's going to change this week. And I think that the Packers have been okay. I think the biggest surprise of the NFL season so far is the fact that that division is wide open still.
Yeah.
Wide open.
Those are 4 really good defenses. And I mean,
yeah,
very variable levels, but those are all 4 really good defenses in my opinion.
But I'm definitely not ready. I'm still not ready to sell myself on the Packers defense. I think that they're kind of a fraudulent 3-0 team like we talked about. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, whenever you're facing Mitch Trubisky in week 1, it didn't, I mean, say what you want. The Bears had a good game this past week, but at the end of the day, like, he didn't get it done. And that's really what matters. And he wasn't getting it done. And Green Bay was able to take advantage of that. So, and you also have on the offensive side for the Packers, you have an experienced game manager like Aaron Rodgers. That matters, regardless of how we feel here with where the Eagles are at. I think the play calling for the Eagles has been really cute, and I think that's dangerous. I really do. And I think you have to go with what works and what pieces work and where you're at right now.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Eagles got a couple issues. To your point, obviously injuries. A couple guys ruled out, as I mentioned, Deshaun Jackson, Timmy Jernigan, huge loss up the middle, and Ronald Darby, arguably their number 1 corner. So I think those are some huge concerns. Looking back through last week, and I'm not going to give anyone any public attention that doesn't pay us to do it, but you go on my Twitter. I have a couple good lists there for NFL beat writers, and one for the Eagles did a great job of kind of breaking down how terrible Jordan Howard is. And just an absolute great play with a huge hole that he consistently missed throughout the game.
Yep.
And that's been an issue. They need to get Miles Sanders more involved. The Bears need to get David Montgomery more involved. And I get it. It takes a couple games with these rookie running backs to allow them to take the reins. But Jordan Howard's just been flat out awful. The Eagles can scheme so well compared to a lot of other teams where Jeffrey isn't necessarily the biggest issue. Not throwing the ball to Nelson Aguilar, who drops it every other catch or attempt, is probably a good idea. But, you look last week, and the run blocking for the Eagles, or the run efficiency, was the worst in week 3. The run blocking was above average on Pro Football Focus, but the graded out runs were horrendous, and it's mostly to do with Jordan Howard. So I'm interested to see how this team fares this week. I think the Eagles are in a nice teaser opportunity to get into 10.5, because I think it is, to your guys' point, Packers haven't really blown anyone out. They're kind of, they love to run the ball, which we knew. LaFleur did that in Tennessee. We understand that he likes Aaron Jones a lot. He's got Jamal Williams mixed in the red zone quite a bit more than I expected.
Yes.
Jamal Williams has been vulturing fantasy owners away. And Valdez-Scantling did have a nice game last week, mostly due to an offsides jump where Rodgers spotted it, threw the ball deep. Valdez-Scantling made a great play. And that's just not their offense anymore. So that's kind of a one-off situation. So another game similar to Nebraska and Ohio State, where we're going to have a good measuring stick for what these two teams are.
Yep.
But I do think taking the points is interesting here. But at the same time, Packers defense is definitely for real. This is finally a squad that Aaron Rodgers can lean on. But I just want to see, is Rodgers kind of pass? I mean, I know he's 35, heading to 36. But has he kind of lost a step? He's lost some zip. We got to see it. We got to have the floor air him out, because even last year when he was injured, he could still wing that football on one leg. So I need to see what both teams really are. But to your point, I'm not hitting the panic button on the Eagles. You got a lot of talent with this team. But I would say I'll take the Eagles with the points for mine. Where you guys are both heading with the Packers?
Yeah, I'm laying the points 4 or 4.5, whatever you're seeing it at. I'm laying those points pretty confidently.
Same.
All right, fair enough. Well, to Sunday, we moved to kind of two shocking teams heading in different directions. The Browns off to a 1-2 start, a very popular pick in the offseason. They head on the road to face Baltimore, hung tough at some points with Kansas City till some weather set in and some awkward plays at the end of the game. But Baltimore, a -7 point favorite, over under of 45, which seems about right. Sounds like the Browns will still be without their whole starting secondary, which they were out with last week. Hopefully they'll get Greedy Williams back, but that certainly seemed to prove issues for Cooper Kupp, who was streaking wide open last week. Kyle, are you more excited to see Lamar face basically a whole backup in a secondary versus the Browns, or what are you looking at this game?
Dude, Lamar's scoring 50 fantasy points in this, almost guaranteed.
Easy.
I think it's been a common misconception all week with these recaps that I've listened to, that the Browns secondary, hey, Browns defense played well, man. They look good, even though it was all backups. They only gave up 20 points to the Rams. The Rams should have scored 40 points in that game. Goff was missing throws because dudes were freaking wide open. All three of those receivers. I mean, it was unreal. I'm really excited to see what Lamar is going to do in this game. I hate just sitting here and just laying points on home favorites. One of these underdogs is going to cover. I do not think it's going to be the Browns. I definitely think Philly has a better chance of covering than the Browns. I think the Ravens win this game handily. I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Mark Ingram, kind of a little resurgence now that he's really a featured back once again. He doesn't have Kamara breathing down his neck. They just have it. I think Harbaugh has it figured out. I think Harbaugh is a really good coach. I know there's kind of a 50-50 split on that in the media. I like Harbaugh a lot. I do have some concerns about the Ravens defense. It's not what it once was when they were, competing over the last 15, 20 years. They've had some great defenses, but the Browns got to figure this out, man. Their offense has so much talent, and they talked about it. The commentators were talking about it on Monday night's game, is when Baker gets rid of the ball, 2.5 seconds, and he does these quick releases that he was doing at Oklahoma, just getting the ball to his athletes in space. So much more successful than him trying to backpedal. And he's got a bad line, so it's not his fault, but he's trying to backpedal. He's trying to scramble out of the pocket and make these plays he can make in Oklahoma. But the dudes chasing him now are a lot faster than dudes in the Big 12. And he's just got to get rid of that ball quickly and trust Odell and trust Jarvis to go make those plays versus trying to do it on his own, because he's going to get himself hurt and it's not going to be successful.
But that's the thing about Baker that I really don't understand. He rolls out so fast. It's his absolute instinct. And sometimes whenever you dial up a draw, you got to run a draw. Now, I will say, I do not like Freddie Kitchens. I do not think he knows what he's doing. I think he's way in over his head. And Jason, you can roll your eyes all you want at me, but when you have a 4th and 9 and you call a quarterback draw, that's the wrong play. That's the wrong
formation.
Play.
Hold
where
on.
You had OBJ and Landry stacked on top of each other was just ignorant.
Hold on. That draw play was about to bust if it wasn't for Eric Weddle making the tackle of his life.
Great play.
You flip the cam around. That was a touchdown. It was it was basically the same as if you were going to pass it. Hey, you got to beat one guy to get the first down. It was the same deal there. But
it was
I love Freddie Kitchens. I think he's a great offensive mind. I do agree with you, J-Mac. He's in way over his head, going from a tight end coach to a head coach.
It's a big leap.
They should have brought in someone who could help mitigate that. But man, I do like Freddie as a coach. But to your point, and I said it last week, losing David Njoku kills this team. Freddie loves to run double tight, and now you're running double tight with one guy who wasn't even on an NFL roster a couple weeks ago. So you're having to adjust that in your game plan as well.
It's
Freddie
fair.
Freddie Kitchens is Jim Harbaugh of the NFL.
That is not even.
I just think that whenever you get up in front of the media and you sit there and say, oh, well, I've got to learn from these things. When you're the head coach, you should have already learned that. So he's in over his head 100% there. I don't really know about his play calling, but I do know that things like that, that was just not the right play call. And there's so many times where he just ran the same thing over and over and over. He made almost no adjustments during that game. And I didn't really understand what he was trying to accomplish there. One thing I did see, this made me laugh really hard. I don't put any stock in QBR. I just don't really like that stat. I don't think it really tells a whole lot. But this did make me laugh. If Lamar were to go throw 8 interceptions in a row, he'd still have a better QBR than Baker does. That's absurd.
That's wild.
That's absurd.
There's an opportunity this weekend for that, J-Mac.
I would love it.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna take the 7 points. I really do like what the Ravens did, but we saw kind of the up-tempo offense give exactly issues with Arizona when they played Baltimore in Baltimore. So I think there is that tendency. It's just going to be interesting. The Browns didn't run much up-tempo last week. Freddie Kitchens kind of spoke to it. They knew they had issues in the secondary. They knew they couldn't turn this into a shootout because they didn't have the weapons, which, to Kyle's point, they probably should have let up a lot more. So it's going to depend on how they want to deal with this. Hopefully they get some guys back because really the most effective way this team will be, as you mentioned, Kyle, is going to be the quick hitters, the up-tempo offense. So if Cleveland does get some help back in that secondary and they decide to flip that script, I think this could be a pretty interesting line for the +7, but also the over-under as well.
So you're taking the 7?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Browns at +7. Absolutely.
So you're taking two dogs in a row. I'm laying 2 home favorites in a row, and I feel more confident about this one than I do Green Bay even.
Same. I play the 7, no problem.
Only way that Cleveland can really cover that, not even win, just cover that, is they got to get after Lamar Jackson, and it starts with Myles Garrett, who is just an absolute beast and really coming into his own and living up to the huge hype that he had.
He destroyed the Jets. He's been kind of quiet outside of that.
But he had that the strip sack that I was impressed by.
Yeah, I got to see. I love Myles Garrett. Got to see more consistency.
Dude, I just like bodybuilders that play football. Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. I'm into it.
He's a poet writer. Chill.
He's a weird dude. He is not your typical football player.
Yeah, he's real strange.
Well, we'll stay in line with Kyle because I know he loves East Coast kicks at noon. They just factor in so much into the equation.
Both East Coast teams.
We head to the surprising 3-0 Buffalo Bills, who welcome Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, who are a 7.5-point favorite in Buffalo, over under a 42.5. And I'd say the more interesting betting line on this game that was just released is you can bet on whether there is a special device that you can find at adult-only stores to be thrown onto the field. And if you're wondering what we're talking about, search Buffalo toy on field, and I'm sure it will pop up. But we're trying to keep this PG-13
very
for
PC.
Children at home.
The best part is watching the
PC of us.
The best part of
minus 140 for one of these toys to land on the field that look just like a microphone. And J-Mac, are you more interested in the game itself or whether fans bring these toys into the stadium?
I'm interested in both for obvious reasons. I mean, I'm taking the Patriots to lay the points here in this game, no problem. But I love watching the ref kick it off the field. That's the best part of the whole thing.
140. It's minus 140.
Is this a thing that happens in Buffalo?
On the field?
Yeah, almost every year, yeah.
Okay. And does it typically happen against New England?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So,
I'm going to get that involved in a money line parlay somewhere just to have that in the mix. I feel like that's a fun thing.
All right, we're going to do it. I'm saying yes, though.
This is just a matchup I'll let you talk about it, Justin. This is just a matchup you guys have dominated, and the Bills are 3-0. I think they're maybe even a more fraudulent 3-0 than the Packers. I think the Niners, the Packers, and the Bills are all worse than their record indicates, but the Bills might be the leader of that camp.
Yeah, I think I'm with you here. I think the Bills have shown some progress, though. I think
great defense.
Quarterback situation's looking a lot better, a lot more consistency on the line. They haven't been terrible, but I think they really think they have a shot to go and beat a team who is yet to have allowed a defensive touchdown this year at all. The 2 touchdowns that they had against the Jets last week were offensive picks from Jarrett Stidham, and it just and then a strip fumble. So like it's not really. I just think the Patriots defense is so goddamn good. I've been saying it since before the season started. I went on View from the Cheap Seats and talked about it. Their defense is young. It's high flying. I think they're gonna slow the Bills down a lot.
I think you think the pass D is the best in the NFL, though.
I know that's true.
I don't think that's true.
Who's better?
I think the Bears have a better defense. Their offense is just so terrible that they're on the field more often. They've had harder matchups already. I like their personnel a little more. Pats are definitely in that top, 1 to 4 range for sure. I like the Bears a lot.
Who else do you have in a 1 to 4 range?
Well, yeah, and I'd probably put Pats too, but I definitely think you could throw Minnesota in the mix there. I think you could look at Green Bay. I think those and the Bills. Those would probably be my top 5 defenses if I had to look at it right now.
So you would take defenses that have allowed points versus one that hasn't? I mean, that's why.
I said this to J-Mac in 38 defensive drives, the Patriots allowed 0 touchdowns and 1 field goal. And Jarrett Stidham has thrown more touchdowns to the other team than they've scored on the Patriots defense. And
pretty good.
Yeah. J-Mac and I were all over this Patriots defense being much more improved than anyone thought in the off-season podcast, which is why you got to listen to it. You guys have to understand what's going on heading into the year. You can't use last year's thoughts. This defense was much more improved. Bill's defense, to Kyle's point, is absolutely elite. Tre'Davious White is a shutdown corner.
Dude, that guy might be the best corner in the league.
So good.
Yeah, and the funny part is Tre'Davious White, LSU kid, Levi Wallace, Bama kid, both played the same years, so when you can get those two to get on the same page, you're doing something right.
You got the depth.
I love the Ed Oliver pick, which we talked about in the offseason podcast as well. I mean, put him next to Star Latulier, very contrasting styles, which work well actually in this situation.
Yeah, because you got about a 60-pound difference there.
60-pound difference, but he absolutely can light you up getting into the backfield while Starr can just plug that hole. So Jerry Hughes has kind of come along nicely and settled in. Tremaine Edmonds, I thought, was kind of a stretch when they took him, but he's played very well with Lorenzo Alexander.
Yeah, where did he come from, Edmonds? He's outside
Vautech.
Vautech, that's right.
Him and his brother played at Vautech.
And then Hughes is my man from TCU.
Yeah, and Tremaine Edmonds is the kid who came out at 19 years old, for goodness sakes.
Pretty good.
I mean, he's 21 years old and been a 2-year starter in the NFL. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, Doug McDermott, one of the better coaches in the NFL. I absolutely love him. Doesn't get the deserve. And Josh Allen's just been steadily progressing. I mean, the end of last year looked fantastic. They brought in Cole Beasley, which people will laugh at, but he's exactly what they needed, a guy who can catch those dump downs. He's a 5 to 6 yard hero.
Yep.
They just got to get somebody at the X. Like they need an elite receiver for Josh Allen because I think he's a franchise quarterback. He's starting to look like it.
I think he is. I think he's getting there too. And John Brown does stretch the field in ways that he needs him to be stretched. I'm not a big Zay Jones fan. I need to see about Singletary's health because I love him and Frank Gore together.
I think he's out. I'm pretty sure he's out.
Cody
this week.
Ford. What's up?
I'm pretty sure Mike Singletary's out this week. I'm looking. Keep going.
Devin Singletary.
Or Devin, excuse me. Mike
Singletary's definitely out this week.
Yeah, he's definitely out this week. My bad.
We're not worried about that. But something interesting to monitor, Tyler Kroft, their starting tight end, is hurt. So Dawson Crocs is going to get a look. He had a nice game last week. But, Cody Ford settling in nice at right tackle. Mitch Morse, love him at center. Again, the guy that we talked about in the offseason podcast came over from Kansas City. Guy Patrick Mahomes did not want to lose, and he's settled in with Josh Allen beautifully. And having a great center quarterback combination is huge, especially with a guy who should be doing some QB sneaks, just being able to fall forward. So the line's interesting. 7.5 at home. Not imply that they'd be about a 13, 14-point favorite if this game was at Foxborough, which seems like a lot for two elite defenses, especially with an over-under at 42. Are you guys interested in the over under more or the spread?
Spread. I'm laying the points, no problem. But that's not shocking, right?
Yeah, I'm laying those points, but I actually like the under here a little bit. I think weather will probably be a factor here, and I think, to the points we've just made, the Pats defense haven't given up a touchdown. That might end this week, maybe, but I don't see the Bills scoring more than like 14 points here. Like, this definitely feels like a 27-10, 27-13 kind of game. So I would love the under. This definitely falls into the teaser mix for me here, where you can get Pats down to a point or maybe half a point, which is essentially a pick 'em. Maybe bump the over, or excuse me, the under up a little bit. I think that's a good play.
Yeah, I love the first half under here. When I'm going unders in the NFL, I just want the first half. I don't want to deal with 20 points in the final 2 minutes. And both teams that like to rely heavily on the run game. The Patriots, though they have hummed early, are not a team that traditionally really gets moving till the second half, and that's just because they don't care or have to. They're not going to put anything on film. They don't want you to know what they're going to do. And this just seems like a Sony Michel heavy game, which they gave them a pretty light workload to this point because they haven't needed to use them yet. They've let Rex Burkhead eat up, when they're up by 20 to 30 points. So I think this is going to be a game plan that's going to be heavy on the run game if Singletary's back on both sides. And then the second half, certainly we could see some points as we move. But if it's 10-3 at half, I'm not going to be shocked at all. So I absolutely love the 21.5 for the first half. And again, some weather in the forecast, monitor it. It could be a bigger factor. So I love the first half under here.
Fair enough.
Well, we're going to move to more of a primetime slate here. The Minnesota Vikings, a 2-1 team that almost could be 3-0 if Kirk Cousins didn't turn into a pumpkin every time he hits into a big situation. He heads on the road to face Chicago, who's a 2-point favorite that squeaked out a couple wins outside of taking Washington to the woodshed on Monday Night Football. And the lowest over under the week, 38.5. J-Mac, I know you are a Trubisky believer. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a hell of a game, and this is going to be a week of test games for a lot of teams, and especially given it's a divisional matchup, all that. I think the 38.5 is really interesting. I mean, you're looking at two elite defenses, really and truly, but I like the Bears defense more, but that doesn't really matter here. I would be really interested to know what the halves look like here. And Bears -2, I mean, we just saw Mitch have a pretty good game the other night, and I think Kyle and I talked about this, I think, a little bit earlier in the week, where it kind of feels like one of those things where Mitch may end up kind of doing the Jay Cutler thing, where you kind of see like this huge progression. It feels like, all right, we're on the right track, and then you see a couple of ducks, and then you get kind of another one of those games. It's like, all right, we're rolling here a little bit. We're just got to get some momentum going. He's still got some issues to fix. I feel like Matt Nagy calls way too conservative of a game plan sometimes, and I feel like that's what's gotten in their way at times. And that wasn't really what he did last year, so it's a little bit confusing. It seems like they've gotten the run game going and more incorporated into this, which is a concern we had at the beginning of the year for sure, that they really weren't doing. On the other side of this, we all know how I feel about this Vikings defense, offense, led by your boy Kirk. I don't trust him, and I give me the Bears here, I think, but it's virtually a pick'em. It's in Chicago, right?
It's in Chicago.
Yep.
Okay, so it's virtually a pick'em. I mean,
J-Mac, it is not a noon kickoff, though. These guys are going at 3:25. I mean, these are Central Time Zone guys going
this
later
is a Central
in the day.
Time Zone.
J-Mac, is this going to mess up their mental clock? I mean,
yes.
Are you concerned about the game time?
Yes, it's outdoors.
They're both in the Central Time Zone. I am 100% confident, Jason, that there is more evidence and more statistics to back up West Coast teams playing at noon on the East Coast versus any kind of weather conditions.
All right,
I agree, but I'm having fun with you. The nice part about this, J-Mac, is it is a 3:25 kick, which will give Shane Buechele time to get after his Saturday game, take the Sunday morning flight out to Chicago and get there by kick. So I think that's a good thing, right?
It's a quick flight. It's a quick flight.
Fuck you guys, man.
It's a quick flight. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this game?
I'm taking my boys here, man. Y'all know how high I am on the Vikings. I trust Kirk more than I trust Mitch Trubisky, and that is saying a lot because I text Justin. I said I trust Kirk Cousins about as much as a homeless crackhead with an American Express black card. I do not trust that man to win you a game. I think he's going to get in a lot of trouble if they get down early, because they're basically, the Bears are just going to pin their ears back and just unleash the pass rush at him. And that offensive line it's a decent run blocking team, but it's a terrible pass protection team. Mm-hmm. The last thing you want to see here, if you're a Vikings fan, is Kirk Cousins throw 40 balls again. You want to see Cook get 20, 25 touches, get, Alexander Madison a few touches. He's looked pretty good. I think Jason and I like him a lot. I think this is a game that's going to come down to game plan. Either team can win. It's just going to be who has the better game plan. Breaking news, that's generally true, but these are pretty even teams, constructed relatively similarly. Chicago's a way better offensive line to protect Mitch. That being said, it's 2 points. I'll take the 2 points. I would love to get a field goal, but I'm going to take the 2 here and trust Dalvin Cook and the running game.
That's fair.
Look, I've said this about the Vikings and the ops. I sound like a beaten horse saying this on every team, but the Vikings are going to beat teams that they can run the ball against, and teams they can't, they're going to really struggle because they are not willing to budge. They are not the Patriots. They're not going to scheme schematically against your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. Zimmer's going to show up. He's still going to run the ball. They're facing a top 5 run defense this week. That's an issue for this team.
Correct.
Because they're still going to try to pound Dalvin Cook into a brick wall. This offensive line is not dramatically improved to last year. And they suddenly, I don't get the Kyle Rudolph situation either. They were going to cut him. They extended him. He's playing less and less. He had 1 target last week. Then you have a nightmare matchup in Irv Smith out of Bama that you drafted, but you refuse to put him on the field or give him looks. So I just don't know what the Vikings thought is. Stephon Diggs has basically been isolated in this offense. So I think it's just going to turn into what we saw last year when they went to Chicago. They're going to run into brick walls. They're going to get down. And to your point, Kyle, that Chicago's be able to pin their ears back in the second half. I mean, unless there's 1 or 2 plays where Dalvin Cook can just take over and break it loose, I mean, I just don't see Zimmer being able to make those adjustments. I hope he proves me wrong because I think Minnesota is more talented, and I'm not a Trubisky believer. Everything he does is 1 to 2 looks. He does so many rollouts where there's only 2 receivers going to that side. So if it's not there, he tucks it and runs or throws it away. And frankly, that's all Nagy's comfortable with doing. And that works versus a team like Washington, but that's not going to work versus Zimmer defense either to an extent. So it's going to be it's just going to be a great divisional game. You got to play field position, all your things. Your John Madden, comments, football players play football. The team that scores more points is going to win the game. It sounds stupid, but unless Minnesota is willing to adjust, willing to not just run into brick walls, willing to not be a Harbaugh and actually make the adjustments early on, I just don't see how they can beat the Bears on the highway, primetime, 325 kick, huge deal here. So I'm going to take the Bears in the -2 just because I haven't seen Zimmer adjust in his career enough at Minnesota to really trust that he's going to move away from just pounding the rock into a brick wall versus a run defense that they can't get past.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that analysis. That's going to be a good game, but it's going to be low scoring. This 38.5 is going to be pretty dead on. It really is.
With 2 horrible kickers, too. I mean, these are 2 franchises who have no luck with kickers. And so, I mean, even if they get into field goal range, you're not feeling comfortable. So, yeah, I mean, barring both defenses getting touchdowns, which they're very capable of.
That's the scary part.
True.
This could be special teams.
It's another game I'm looking first half under. You wish you could get to 20. That's a huge key number. After you're moving down past that, 18.
What's it at? Is it 19?
Yeah, it's a 38.5 over under. You're probably looking at 18.5, 19, depending where you look.
Tough.
So
that's one where, like, on paper, it totally makes sense that it would go under, but I'm staying away from the under there just because, like you said, I mean, a pick 6 from Trubisky or Cousins is very realistic, or a fumble, on their own 20, that could definitely happen.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Exactly. So I'm taking Bears -2. Kyle, you're taking the Vikings +2. J-Mac, where you heading?
I'm going with the Bears -2. Easy.
Wonderful.
Just assume I'm taking the Vikings every time.
I want to announce the last game of the week since it's personal to both of you guys, and we have kind of an announcement with it. Last game of the week, huge game, Cowboys at Saints. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites with an over-under of 47. We are also doing a live stream of this game. Kyle Beats and I are going to be watching it, so you can tune in. You can hear the live commentary, maybe just a second or 2 behind, but you'll get to hear the live reactions. We're going to be talking. JB, I think you're going to join in if you get a chance, if you have a few minutes. But we're really excited to do another live stream. This will be probably one of the last ones until baseball playoffs are over with. JB, I'll throw to you to start. How are you feeling about this game?
Yeah, Cal and I were talking about this off air to start. The lines moved just today itself down to Cowboys minus 2.5. So I apologize. I put in the notes. So that's not J Mac's fault. I put in the notes 3.5.
Oh,
That's what it was up till tonight.
wow.
You know what? This is it's easy to see why people will be excited about both sides. It's America's team. It's a Sunday night kick. I think the Cowboys will have plenty of action on them. You also have the revenge factor. New Orleans at home. Once you turn on the TV, it's easy to get behind that crowd noise. Sean Payton, and they looked good last week. They destroyed the Seahawks, but it was a team I mentioned last week. I loved the Saints. Too much value. The Seahawks were completely overvalued. They beat two garbage teams barely. I really love the Cowboys here, especially at minus 2.5. I think it's a great line. It's one of the better teams in the NFL. It's the only team that returned all 22 starters from the year before. If you haven't seen Kellen Moore in his play calling yet, you need to tune it on. And they match up terrifically well versus the Saints team. I mean, Kamara will pretty much be very limited. We have a linebacking crew that will prevent him from moving out of the backfield. Outside of Michael Thomas, they don't have another passing option, which Byron Jones will be able to remove. And I like Teddy, but I don't love him in this spot either. And the offensive line struggled. I don't want to dive too deep into this because I think this is just a complete mismatch. The line tells you what you need to. I think the Saints really had an all-in effort last week, which you see sometimes with an injury. We talked about it. They stayed on the West Coast. The team knew they had to win. It was a must-win to get to 2-1. I'm not saying it's a letdown spot because it is at home in prime time, but the Cowboys will be ready. I have no doubt about that. And I just think they have too much firepower without, Drew Brees in the lineup for the Saints. And I just think they match up extremely well. And that's what they did. We saw that last year, Kyle, right? We saw that when they shut them down last year on Thursday Night Football.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I was at that game, 13-10, with my boy from New Orleans, and that was just magical. And that's when I really started believing in this defense. There was a few hits in that game with Jalen and Van Der Esch on Kamara that were just like, wow. And you hit the nail on the head. Kamara he's a great back. He's still going to get his yards. He's still a must start in fantasy, things like that. But with Jalen and Van Der Esch's speed and ability to read plays at really an all-pro level, he's going to be limited. With Michael Thomas, like you said, you put Byron on him, you put the safety over the top. I'll live in one-on-one situations with, Traquan or Ted Ginn and guys of that nature. The pass rush is going to get after Teddy. I think if you're a casual fan and you just glance at that score and you said, "Oh man, the Saints look great with Teddy. They're fine." They didn't look that good. They had like 280, 300 yards of offense. The defense had some big plays. They're a beneficiary of just some kind of fluky things happening. I don't read into that too much, and I don't think Seattle is that good anyways. And they got exposed. So, this line, a lot of people have said it seems crazy because New Orleans is a great home crowd, as you alluded to, Cowboys being a favorite going in there. And you look at it and say they'd probably be an 8-point favorite at home. I don't think that's crazy with Teddy Bridgewater running things. If Drew Brees was in this game, the Cowboys would be getting a field goal.
See, my take on here is actually kind of the other side. I'm taking the other side of this. I'm taking the Saints and the points simply because I trust Sean Payton over anything on the Cowboys staff. That's what this comes down to. I wouldn't go out there and say he's the best coach in the league by any stretch.
Right.
I definitely wouldn't say that. I love Sean Payton as a coach, though.
I do too.
If take Bill Belichick out of the equation for me, Sean Payton's probably number 2 for me. No doubt about it. I think he's a great offensive mind. I love his look at defense too, and I just think I don't think the Cowboys are overlooking this game by any stretch of the imagination. I think they overlooked Miami a little bit in the first half last week.
100%.
Just kind of ready to go, but they turned it on like they needed to. I knew they were going to take care of business. It started slow. It figured itself out. I have no problems with that. I think the Cowboys have skated on some. I'm not saying that they've deservedly won every single game they've played so far, but these have been really bad teams. I think this is going to be a great matchup for both of these sides. I think the line's a little bit crazy being in the favor of the Cowboys on the road. I think it's probably, in my mind, more of a pick'em. But I get where you're coming from with Teddy, and that's probably where the biggest difference is here. And if you had Drew Brees, this line would be very different.
It would. And a few things there is, I think Belichick theory here for Cowboys last week, I don't think they wanted to put too much on tape. They knew they were going to beat the Dolphins. You just got to take care of business. I don't think they were doing anything too fancy in the first half. It was pretty vanilla. For a minute, I thought Scott Linehan was back. But the best way to take away a great home crowd like the Saints do have is to just pound the rock and just kill
Yeah.
the team spirit. And the Cowboys offensive line and Zeke can't do that. And this is going to be Zeke's breakout game. Everybody's waiting for it. They've definitely been holding him back for these 3 cupcake games to open the season with. I see Zeke going for 100 plus and a TD here easily. My only concern for the Cowboys is points per game. They look pretty good because they played 3 terrible offenses, but they've given up a lot of yards. They've truly been a bend don't break, which has been a kind of a theme for this defense for a while. That does scare me, but holding the Saints to field goals on some of these longer drives is going to be crucial.
And the other part of that, so I'll say the other side of that too, is it's almost the same logic for Alvin Kamara. He's been relatively quiet the first 3 weeks. I think they're going to have to lean on him a lot more.
Big game week 2, but yeah, overall.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to lean on him a lot more here, and I think that's going to be a huge differentiator.
Yeah, I'd agree. Well, I'm laying the points. I don't think it's going to be close. Kyle's laying it. J-Mac's going the other way, but that's why we're here, to agree to disagree, but we'll come here. Cowboys will be 4-0 heading on to the Packers next week, but we're excited.
All right. Let's do picks of the week.
For the final segment, I know some of you probably scrolled to the end of the podcast just to get to the best bets opportunity. Kind of an update. Hit a little bit of a skid. Kyle and I went both 1-1 on our picks, and then 0-2 on the dogs. J-Mac did hit on his big money line promise of the San Francisco 49ers, who statistically
not great.
That was a weird game. We won't get too deep.
It was a wildly terrible game.
I mean, when you throw like 2 picks in your end of the field and are only down 6-0, you kind of take that as a nice sign. But we move forward. We do not look back. Kyle and I are 9-3 with our best bet selections, 2-2 on the underdogs. Let's start with college football. Kyle Beats, do you have a pick for us this week for college football?
I do, and I'm hoping to get it turned around here. We've been on fire in the NFL, been seeing it really clear. As we talked about earlier in the pod, college football is just more difficult. You don't see all these teams play as much as the NFL teams. That being said, staying in the Big 12 again, which was not a great call last week, I'm laying the 4 points for the Oklahoma State against Kansas State. Oklahoma State's at home. They're coming off a tough game. Tough loss to Texas. The score was probably closer, indicates it was closer than it really was. I like Oklahoma State's offense. Kansas State had a big, win against Mississippi State. I don't care about that too much. I don't think that's a great win. I like Oklahoma State to win this by a touchdown, so I'm laying the 4 points at home.
Fair enough.
I do not know what time the kickoff is.
That we will let the listeners find that one. Well, a game that we previewed and a game I'm pretty bullish on. I'm going to take the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Wow.
Plus 17.
Wow.
Minus 110, widely available. I wouldn't wait on this. I'm not saying that you want that 17. That's kind of a key number.
Yes.
16.5 down to 14 doesn't really do much for you. Why? So get the 17 while you can. Again, I think the weather's going to be a little bit of a factor. I love Adrian Martinez, Scott Frost, first big game for them at home, and then Ryan Day heading on the highway, Justin Fields. I think there could be some jitters. As I mentioned, maybe sprinkle some on the first half, split that up if you can get plus 10. But I love what we're seeing out of the Cornhuskers heading into this game.
So is that your dog pick as well? You
no.
up?
Well,
okay.
Dog.
Like
I'll give you a nice money line on that.
That's just your straight up taking the 17. I like it. I will say, guys, if you're going to tease that game, because I think there's some teaser potential for Nebraska there, because I think they could get some garbage time touchdowns. Do the full 7. Get yourself 24. Don't do 23.5. But I like that. I like that pick. It's a ballsy pick, Jason.
J-Mac, you got a college, anything float your boat in the college spectrum?
Yep, sure does. I'm going to take the other side of that for the sake of rivalry and fun. I think they're going to cover the 17.5 points, though. I really do. That Ohio State offense has been flying the last couple weeks. So
yeah,
feel good about it.
Great. I'm glad you feel great about it. We'll text about it Saturday night. All right. Kyle Beats, we're going to head to the NFL. I know we've talked about a lot of games. We've texted about some off air. I know you hate the Carolina Panthers, but where are you heading at this weekend?
Yeah, so I'll admit, although we've been hot on the NFL, my brain was all over the place for this week's slate. I could not make up my mind, but I wanted to come to you guys with a pick. We've been doing very, very well in the NFL. I started this week thinking I was going to take the Texans. That line just smells weird to me. I don't know what the Kyle Allen situation is going on. the Texans just make games too close for my comfort. The 4.5, 5 makes me nervous for whatever it is. So I'm staying away there. And I'm transitioning over to the Indianapolis Colts at home. I'm going to lay it's 6.5. I would not lay the full touchdown. I love the 6.5. I'm going to lay that they're at home against the Oakland Raiders. I like what Jacoby Brissett's doing. I think the Raiders, they win that game week 1. People think, oh, they're going to be better than we thought. No, this team is exactly what we thought they were going to be. I'm laying that 6.5 all day.
Wow. All right. Well, Oakland Raiders, they want to get Josh Jacobs more involved. I will smile at that, but we will see.
Yep.
NFL should come as a shock. Another game we previewed. I love the under in the first half for the Patriots and Bills. Again, I just think we're not going to see much out of either one. 2 elite defenses. Honestly, the over-under, if this was probably a month or 2 from now in colder weather, it'd be 37. So I think we're getting a little bit of value here. You can get 21.5 widely available. After it gets under that, you just kind of gets mucked up. So I like 21.5. I like 21. I like 20.5. Don't tweet us if you're got a question. If you don't get it now, don't wait till Sunday at 11:59 because people are just getting up at that point in the day. Yeah. So
the weather can change. Yeah.
Anything before
it's like 3 a.m. on the West Coast, man.
Oh my gosh! Can you even imagine the people in Hawaii trying to wake up to watch a game? Oh my god,
that's legitimately a problem.
Yeah, that's different.
J-Mac, where are you heading?
So my lock of the week, we've actually already talked about it a little bit. I'm taking the Ravens over Cleveland to lay the points with no problems here. I think this Baltimore team, we all watched that Kansas City Baltimore game last week. It didn't really feel reflective. The final score didn't really feel reflective of what really happened in that game. But I like Lamar, man. I like Lamar a lot, and I think he's doing a lot with a little. He is one of the most disciplined QBs, young quarterbacks in the league right now. And people have been questioning, whether he should be a receiver and should he be a quarterback. He has absolutely proven everybody wrong that thought he should be a receiver.
Dude, his accuracy has improved greatly.
It's incredible. And so and he also knows when to run too. So I love that about him. I'm taking the Ravens here. It's an easy bet.
So you're laying the full touchdown there,
absolutely.
Right? Okay. And we're once again, guys, we're 7-1 overall, 2-2 on the dogs. We're
9-3 overall.
Oh, 7-1 coming into the week. My apologies.
Yep, 2-2. And so the dogs wise, we did move to 2-2. Kyle Beach, you got a dog for me this week? Who's barking?
I do. And I do want to say real quick, we 9-3. I want to involve J-Mac now that he's picking consistently with us on these. So we're going to hold him accountable for his picks starting this week for you guys. For the dogs, I am staying in the NFL. And I'm loading up on the guy that's been in the most memes this week, Gardner Minshew. I'm going +3 at Denver. I can tell Jason loves this pick. Not worried about Mile High Stadium. Not worried about the effects. These guys are conditioned enough by the 4th game. I'm trusting Gardner Minshew over Joe Flacco.
Look, this is a team they're facing in Denver Broncos, which I talked about last week. It was a stay-away game for me with the Broncos and Packers because I needed to see if the Broncos had any fight left in them. They do. Just quite frankly, they do. Jacksonville is being way overvalued here, -3. I love the Broncos, but
no, they're Jacksonville's +3.
I know, and I love the Broncos.
Okay,
-3.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm disagreed. For all the listeners, I'm headlining. Kyle and I go head to head here.
Just like Michigan, Wisconsin.
He's Shane Buechele.
Come on. Killing
for
us
the
both
dog
here.
of the week for me, I'm heading to a team that you just on primetime gets slaughtered. I'm going to take the Washington Redskins +3 in a division game as they head on the road to the New York Giants. See, I think we have a letdown spot with Daniel Jones. And
I like that.
I think Case Keenum and Jay Gruden, kind of a must-win for them. Gruden's coaching for his job at this point. You go 0-4.
For sure.
And
tough look.
Case Keenum's playing for his job in his career. He's pretty much one interception away, I think, from Haskins coming in here.
That fumble on 4th down was just
so bad. It's the worst.
But you know what? This is the NFL is interesting. You got to sell a team one week and buy them the next. So
right.
I'm going to buy in on the Redskins. I like the money line +150. I'm grabbing that into a tight division battle.
All right. So for my dog of the week, Jason, you're going to love this. I'm taking the Carolina Panthers and the points here over Houston. I think hungry dogs have got to eat here. I think Kyle Allen's hungry. I like what he's doing. He looked really, really good last week. I actually looked back at passer rating numbers, and in the last game, he had a 144.3. The last time that Cam had that passing rating was in December. It was December 13th, 2015, during his MVP season.
When his shoulder worked.
Hold on.
Right.
Hold on. Can we get production to rewind this episode?
Yes.
J-Mac quoting that he hates QBR, but then he just quoted a passer rating.
I'll take passer rating over QBR any day because it's not an all-around stat. I'm just saying I like what Kyle Allen's doing, trying to fill some of those shoes.
You know what? I love the pick. I hate the Texans. I fade them when I need to. They're a team that's very easy to understand, just like the Vikings when they will and will not have success. Love the Panthers +5 here as well.
All I'm saying is I picked the Texans to win their division. You picked the Panthers, and I'm feeling much better about the Texans doing that. I don't like that pick at all, but I respect it. It's one thing we can agree on is Riverboat Ron versus Bill O'Brien is a shit show.
God,
that is a I don't love Ron as a coach, but anytime Bill O'Brien's facing 90% of NFL coaches, it is a mismatch as hell.
Yep.
We need to find an over-under on just bad decision made by coaches in this game because it's going to be very high. Poor clock management to be seen and for sure in that game.
Agreed.
Well, perfect. We have 9 best bets for you guys. We're going to release an extra one on Twitter. I know I will on Saturday, whether it's college or NFL. We may have some more as well, so please check the page. J-Mac's going to get us out of here, tell you where you can find those picks.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to get some out too. We want to remind everyone to follow us on social media. That's Sensibly Loud Media on Facebook and at Sensibly Loud on Twitter and Instagram as well. We'll put those picks out there for you guys. Another reminder, we will have the live stream for the Cowboys-Saints game. We will be live just before kickoff. That'll be YouTube, on our Facebook page, and on Periscope. So make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and make sure to subscribe to the pod as well. We also want to make sure you guys are getting the word in as well. We want to hear if you guys are pissed off at our picks or what. So make sure to give us a call. Leave us a voicemail. That number is 972-885-9361. We're getting out of here. We'll see you guys next week.